old man James sat quietly on a soft chair in his big room. His mansion was silent, but his heart was loud. He was very rich. He had 4 children and a big company with many workers. He had cars, houses, and land in different cities. People called him the Billionaire Lion. But inside he was not happy. Not even a little. Every day his family was fighting. His wife, Lydia, always looked sad or angry. His first son, John, was always shouting. His second son, Daniel, was never around. His third child, Esther, only cared about her phone and parties. The only one who smiled at him kindly was his last child, Angel. James was getting old. His hands shook sometimes. His back ached. He knew he wouldn't live forever. When I die, will they tear everything apart? He wondered. He watched how his family behaved. They loved his money more than they loved him. They were always trying to get more, trick one another, and be in charge. He felt tired of pretending everything was fine. So one day James called his best and most trusted friend, Barrister Peter, his lawyer. "Peter," he said in a slow voice, "I want to test my family. I want to see who truly loves me." Peter was confused. "How do you want to do that, sir?" "I will pretend to be dying," James said. "I want to see what they do when they think I am about to leave this world. You and Dr. Enoch will help me." Peter paused. It sounded strange, but he trusted James. "All right. Let's plan this carefully." 2 days later, James called his family together. They all sat in the big living room. The marble floors were clean. The ceiling lights shined like gold. Lydia sat with her arms crossed. John looked bored. Daniel was typing on his phone. Esther was blowing bubble gum. Angel sat quietly beside her father, holding his hand. Dr. Enoch walked into the room, his face serious. "I have sad news," Dr. Enoch said. "Mr. James has cancer. The tests are clear. He only has 6 months to live." The room went silent. Angel gasped and hugged her father tightly. John looked at his mother. Daniel blinked, then looked down at his phone. Esther asked, "Are you sure, doctor?" Lydia said nothing. Her lips trembled, but she didn't go near her husband. Later that night, James lay in bed and pretended to sleep. But his eyes were open. He watched what would happen next. Soon things began to change. John started acting like the new boss. "Daddy is weak now," he told the workers at the company. "I'm the first son. I'm in charge now." He began firing people who had worked with James for many years. He hired his friends instead. He wore expensive suits and drove the latest cars. The staff started whispering. Some cried when they were sent away. James heard about everything from Barrister Peter. He felt pain in his chest, but not from cancer, from disappointment. Esther acted like nothing had changed. She posted pictures of herself at parties. "Life is short," she wrote under her photos. "Live like a queen." James watched as the people he loved failed him. Only Angel stayed close. She cooked for him. She cleaned his room. She wiped his face with a wet towel when he coughed. Sometimes she read books to him or told him stories to make him laugh. When he was cold, she placed a warm cloth on his feet. And at night she slept on the floor next to his bed just in case he needed anything. James held her hand one evening. "You're a blessing, my child," he whispered. Angel smiled and kissed his hand. "You're my father. I love you. I will never leave you." That night James cried quietly. Not because he was sad, but because he still had one person who truly cared. But the house wasn't peaceful. Lydia was not the woman she used to be. James noticed that she no longer came to check on him. She spent more time outside or locked in her room. Then something strange happened. The old driver, Mr. Clement, who had been with them for 17 years, was suddenly fired. A new man arrived. His name was Chris. He was young, tall, and very muscular. Lydia introduced him as her new personal driver. James looked at her with tired eyes. "Why did you remove Clement?" "He was too old," Lydia said simply. "And slow." Angel didn't believe her. She watched closely. Chris wasn't driving her mother anywhere. He was always around. Too close. Too comfortable. One day Angel opened a door and saw Lydia kissing Chris in the guest room. Her heart broke. She shouted, "Mommy! How could you do this? Daddy is lying sick in bed and you're with another man?" Lydia didn't answer at first. Then she said, "You're just a child. You don't understand. I've been alone for years." Angel was shaking. "This is wicked. He still loves you." But Lydia didn't stop. Angel couldn't take it anymore. That night she sat by James and said, "Daddy, I think we should go somewhere quiet. Somewhere peaceful. This house is full of pain." James looked into her eyes and nodded. "Take me anywhere. Just you and me." The next morning Angel arranged everything. A private ambulance arrived and took James away while the rest of the family was out. She didn't tell anyone. Not even her mother. She took her father to a private hospital in Abuja. The building was clean and quiet. The rooms smelled like flowers. The nurses smiled gently. Back in Lagos, everything was falling apart. John, the first son, was acting like the king of the empire. He wore expensive clothes, big golden wristwatches, and shiny leather shoes. He told everyone at the company, "I am now the CEO. My father is as good as gone." He didn't even visit the hospital to check on James. Instead, he began changing everything. He fired Mr. Ajayi, the company's manager who had worked with James for 25 years. He said, "I don't want old men here. I want people with fresh ideas." But John's fresh ideas were silly and wasteful. He threw a party at the office with dancers and musicians. He bought an 300 million car from the company's account. He also gave his girlfriend a job as a fashion consultant in the company, even though she had no experience. The workers were scared. Many were angry. But nobody spoke up. They missed old man James. They missed the way he smiled, gave advice, and treated them like family. Now the office felt like a jungle. Meanwhile, Daniel, the second son, was even worse. Daniel had never been serious about anything. He liked flashy things and fast money. Now that their father was dying, he acted like a prince set free. Without telling anyone, he called some agents and sold the large industrial farm that James built many years ago. He also sold the big shopping complex in the center of Lagos, one of James' most valuable assets. With the millions he got, Daniel traveled to Dubai, Ghana, and South Africa, posting pictures of himself in clubs and hotels. "Son of a billionaire," he wrote online. "No worries, just vibes." But what Daniel didn't know was that barrister Peter was watching him closely. Peter had followed James' instruction to secretly protect half of the fortune. As Daniel was selling, Peter was quietly buying back the properties under a different company name. The buildings were not lost forever, but James still felt hurt. Why would my own son sell everything I worked for without even a goodbye? At home things were not better. Esther, the only daughter after Angel, didn't care about any of it. She was always taking pictures and recording videos for her online followers. "Hey guys," she would say with a big fake smile. "Today I'm showing you my new shoes. They cost 2 million naira. She didn't visit James in the hospital. When Angel called her to ask why, she replied, "What am I supposed to do? Cry beside his bed every day? Beg, let me enjoy my life." Angel felt sad. Her family was crumbling. But the biggest heartbreak was still her mother, Lydia. After moving James to Abuja, Angel stayed behind for one day to pack a few of his personal items from the mansion. She entered the living room and saw Chris sitting on the sofa, watching football in a singlet and shorts. "Where is my mum?" Angel asked coldly. "She's in her room," Chris said with a smirk. Angel's heart boiled. She marched upstairs and opened her mother's door without knocking. Lydia was in bed, painting her nails. "Mummy," Angel said firmly, "why is Chris still here?" Lydia sighed. "Angel, I don't owe you an explanation." Angel looked at her in shock. "You brought your boyfriend into Daddy's house? While he's fighting for his life." Lydia dropped the nail polish bottle. "Your father has not touched me in years. I was tired of being lonely." "That's no excuse." Angel shouted. "You've shamed our family. Daddy gave you everything, and this is how you pay him back." "Don't talk to me like that," Lydia warned. "You are just a child." Angel shook her head. "I'm the only one behaving like a real adult here." Without saying another word, she walked out of the room. Angel packed James' clothes, shoes, and documents. Before leaving, she walked around the house one last time. The mansion used to feel like home, but now it felt like a dark, cold cave full of lies. When she returned to Abuja, James was sitting in a wheelchair in the hospital garden. Birds chirped in the trees. The sun touched the flowers gently. Angel sat beside him. "How's home?" James asked, even though he already knew. "It's worse than I thought," Angel replied softly. "Mummy is still with that man. Daniel is selling things like we are poor. John is destroying the company. Esther doesn't even care. James looked down at his hands. I trusted them. I gave them the best of everything. And they gave me pain in return. Angel held his hand tightly. You still have me, Daddy. James smiled. Yes, my angel. You are my only light. The next morning, James had a long talk with Dr. Solomon, the kind doctor in Abuja. Doctor, he began, I need to tell you something. I already know, Dr. Solomon replied. You're not dying. There's no cancer. James nodded. It was a test. I needed to see if my family truly loved me or only loved my money. Dr. Solomon listened quietly. My wife, James continued, is cheating on me. My sons are selling everything I built. My daughter only cares about fashion. Only Angel stayed. Only she cared. Only she held my hand. Dr. Solomon sighed. You have your answer, Mr. James. But now what will you do? James looked out the window. I will return. But not yet. I want them to feel what life without me truly means. Let them taste the soup they cooked. They had stayed in Abuja for 3 weeks now. The private hospital was like a home. The nurses were kind, the food was good, and the gardens smelled like roses and oranges. But even in peace, James couldn't forget what was happening back in Lagos. One evening he sat in the hospital's quiet lounge with Dr. Solomon. I must say, sir, Dr. Solomon began, this is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. A man pretending to be dying, to test his family. James chuckled sadly. Strange, yes. But necessary. Dr. Solomon leaned forward. You wanted to know the truth. James nodded slowly. I gave them everything. Money, love, education, a home. But now I see what they truly value, not me but my wealth. He looked tired but not weak. Dr. Solomon asked gently, and what did you discover? James stared at the table in front of him. Only one person still sees me as a father, Angel. The rest see me as a walking wallet. They both sat in silence for a moment. Outside the wind blew softly. Meanwhile Angel stayed strong. She made sure her father took his vitamins, did some light exercise and smiled at least once a day. She even called Barrister Peter regularly to get updates from Lagos. Each time the news was worse. John had fired more staff and hired his friends who didn't even know how to run a company. One of them mistakenly sent company money to the wrong account, 10 million naira, and it could not be traced again. Daniel had returned from South Africa and bought a flashy car and a diamond watch. But his name was now dirty in the news. The story of him being with an escort had gone viral. Even big newspapers had published the story. Esther, on the other hand, was enjoying the chaos. She started selling exclusive family secrets to gossip bloggers. She told stories about her father's past that were private and personal. She posted pictures of the house and even claimed the company would soon be hers. The family name was now a joke on the internet. People made memes about James being gone. Some even said he was buried secretly because the children wanted to eat the money. At the company, workers stopped coming to work. Customers canceled big contracts. The family empire was falling apart. Slowly but surely. Barrister Peter was scared. He called Angel and said, we must bring your father back before the business disappears. Angel took the phone to James. He listened carefully and then said, let them burn it to the ground. I will build it again from the ashes. Peter whispered, sir, I don't think there will be ashes left if we wait any longer. James sat quietly that night. The moon shone into his hospital room. He remembered how hard he worked as a young man. He remembered sweating under the sun while building his first factory. He remembered feeding his children, sending them to the best schools and watching them grow. He closed his eyes and said out loud, it's time. The next morning James wore a clean suit. Angel helped him with his shoes. They looked at each other. Are you ready? She asked. James smiled. Yes, my angel. Let's go back. Back in Lagos, nobody expected what was coming. John was in a meeting with the company board, shouting and sweating. You people should trust me. I know what I'm doing. One board member, Mrs. Ogunlai, shook her head. Since you took over, we have lost over 600 million naira. Where is your father? Another man asked. Why is he hiding? John shouted back. My father is old and dying. I am the new face of this company. Just then the door opened slowly. Everyone turned around. There, standing tall and proud, was Old Man James in his blue suit and walking stick. The room went silent. Some people gasped. One woman dropped her pen. James looked at them and said, "Is this how you run a kingdom when the king is away?" John's mouth fell open. Did he? But how? James walked slowly to the front of the room. "You thought I was dying. You thought you could take over without respect, without honor." He turned to Mrs. Ogunlai. "Thank you for trying to hold things together. Now I will handle this myself." John stood confused and scared. "It was the doctor," he said. James raised a hand. "I told the doctor what to say. It was a lie. Yes. And you, my son, failed." He walked out of the boardroom without another word. Later that evening, James returned to his mansion with Angel. Lydia was in the living room sipping wine. Chris was beside her laughing. When she saw James, the wine glass slipped from her hand. "You," she whispered. "You're alive." James walked in calmly. "Very much alive." Chris stood up, nervous. James pointed to him. "Now." Chris didn't argue. He ran out of the house like a scared rabbit. James turned to Lydia. "I saw everything. I know everything. The cameras were never off." Lydia began to cry. "James, I'm sorry. I was lonely." James shook his head. "I gave you love and loyalty. You gave me betrayal." Then he said firmly, "You have 2 hours to pack your things and leave this house." "Where will I go?" Lydia cried. "That's your problem," he replied coldly. Angel stood by the door watching quietly. That night James called all his children to the mansion. They entered slowly, confused and guilty. John, Daniel, Esther. None of them could meet his eyes. James didn't waste time. He played the CCTV footage. They saw Lydia kissing Chris. They saw John throwing company parties. They saw Daniel selling land. They saw Esther mocking the family online. When the screen went black, James stood. "I'm not dying. I never was. But what I saw made me wish I had," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You are all selfish, greedy, unfaithful." He turned to Angel and smiled. "Only one person stood by me. Only one person passed the test." He held up a folder. "From this day forward, all my money, all my shares, and full control of my company goes to Angel." The others shouted. "What? This is a joke. You can't do this." James looked at them. "I just did." John, Daniel, and Esther stood frozen. Their mouths were open but no words came out. The room was heavy. The air felt thick. No one moved for a few seconds after Old Man James spoke. Then suddenly John shouted, "This is not fair. I am the first son. I should be in charge." Daniel jumped up too. "You want to give everything to Angel? She's just a girl. She made you turn your back on your real children." Esther folded her arms and said, "She probably planned this all along. She wanted to be the favorite." Angel stood quietly beside their father. Her hands were shaking but her face was calm. James raised his hand. "Enough." They all went silent again. He looked at them one by one. "John," he said, "you used the company like your personal toy. You fired loyal staff and wasted money on parties. That is not leadership." John lowered his head. "Daniel," he continued, "you sold off family land and business without telling anyone. Then you used the money to chase women and travel the world." Daniel looked away embarrassed. "Esther," James said softly, "you had no care at all. You mocked this family online, told lies to bloggers and treated our name like a joke." Esther's eyes began to water. "And Lydia," James turned to his wife, now standing in a corner with her suitcase. "You invited another man into my house while you thought I was dying. You disrespected me in this home." Lydia began to sob loudly. "James, I made a mistake." James shook his head. "You made a choice. You are no longer welcome in this house." Lydia looked at Angel. "You did this. You turned your father against us." Angel finally spoke. Her voice was calm but full of emotion. "I didn't turn anyone against you. You did that to yourselves. I only stayed true. I only loved him when everyone else turned away." Lydia picked up her bag and left without another word. James sat down slowly and said, "This is not about punishment. It's about truth. I gave you a chance. You failed." Then he opened a brown envelope and pulled out a letter. "This is my final will. Barrister Peter helped me prepare it. He handed a copy to each of them. In this document, James explained, I have removed John, Daniel, Esther, and Lydia from my inheritance. You will receive nothing from my estate, business, or properties. What? John shouted again. You're cutting us off? You have all taken more than enough, James said firmly. You wasted it. Now you will learn how to earn something on your own. Daniel grumbled. We're still your children. You can't just pretend we don't exist. You are still my children, James replied sadly, but I am not blind anymore. He turned to Angel and held her hand. She is now the CEO of my company. She is in charge of my estate. She is the one who stayed, helped me, and gave me hope. Angel tried not to cry. She had never wanted all the riches, but she accepted the responsibility. I will not fail you, Daddy, she whispered. James smiled. I know you won't. The next day, Angel entered the company office for the first time as the new CEO. The workers stood and clapped. Many of them were happy. They had heard stories of how she cared for her father while the others only wanted his money. Angel spoke gently to them. We're going to rebuild. We are going to restore the honor and strength this company once had. The workers cheered. She called back some of the old staff John had fired. She visited the factory floor, the warehouses, and the accounts office. She asked questions, listened, and took notes. Everywhere she went, people said the same thing. We're glad it's you. Sis. Angel didn't just fix the problems, she started new things too. She created a department for helping young people learn about business. She opened a charity to help widows and orphans. And slowly the company began to rise again. Meanwhile, life became very hard for John, Daniel, and Esther. No more free cars. No more trips. No more fancy food or servants. They had to move out of the mansion. John tried to start a business, but he had no discipline. It failed within months. Daniel tried to go into real estate, but nobody trusted him anymore. Clients were afraid because of the scandal. Esther tried to sell fashion items online, but her followers had lost respect for her. They called her names in the comments. Greedy child. Spoiled brat. Ungrateful daughter. Sis. And Lydia? She went to live with a friend in another city. But her life was never the same. She tried to call James many times, but he didn't pick up. The three children began to blame Angel. She stole our father. She used sweet words to turn him against us. She's not better than us. But deep down they knew the truth. They had failed the test. Angel didn't fight back. She didn't insult them. She kept quiet, focused on her work, and took care of her father. One day, a news headline flashed across television screens and phones. Angel James, the young woman who saved her father's empire. People celebrated her. They called her the rose of the family, the loyal daughter, and the quiet queen. Months passed. The company grew stronger. New deals came in. People were proud to do business with James and Daughters Ltd again. James, now healthy and smiling, sat in the garden of the mansion and watched Angel walk through the flowers to bring him tea. She sat beside him and said, "We did it, Daddy." He smiled and touched her cheek. "No, you did it." Angel chuckled.